Hello, welcome to Balance Exercises for Fall Prevention. My name is Dani Ondreka, fitness specialist with Kettering Health, and today we're going to discuss a few specific muscle strengthening and coordination exercises that we can utilize every day to help make us stronger and prevent falls. You may or may not have heard the term movement is medicine, but you've probably heard the term use it or lose it. So we're going to apply those principles today as we discuss how movement really can help us in our balance as we age. So let's talk about the few categories that we have here when we exercise for fall prevention. Of course, we have muscle and bone strengthening. This could be through weight-bearing exercise or through seated exercise. We could use a form of resistance like a weight or a TheraBand, or we could simply use our own body weight. We could also look at very balance-specific exercises, which utilize a lot of foot positions on the floor and maybe some different upper body movements to help challenge them. We can also look at coordination exercises that help us to do several things at once or move through more flowing motion. So we're first going to start with a little bit of a warm-up. You can join us seated or standing today. We're going to start with some neck and some shoulder rolls. So let's warm up that neck first. We're going to start by taking it in a nice, easy circle, working to keep our shoulders nice and low, nice and relaxed. And take your time. You don't need to go as fast or as slow as I'm going. Find a pace that feels good to you to feel out each muscle group and notice where we might feel some tension. When we're ready to reverse, take it back that opposite direction. Again, taking our time, noticing where you might be feeling any pain or any tension here. Then when we're ready, we're going to roll out those shoulders, moving down the body as we warm up. So nice big circle here. We want to keep the neck relaxed because we just kind of stretched and rolled it out. We don't want to invite any more tension into those muscles. Ooh, yep. We know when we're feeling pops and hearing creaks. It's good stuff. We're going to bring those shoulders back forward. Certainly, if we feel any pain, feel free to change your motion here, change your range. We hopefully should not be feeling any pain, but sometimes creaks and cracks are normal. Next, we'll warm up those arms with some arm circles. You're going to take your arms straight out to your sides, and if it feels uncomfortable to have them quite this high, we can bring them a little bit lower. That's okay too. Starting in a nice, easy circular motion, whichever direction you'd like to begin first, keeping the shoulders down away from the ears so that we're not pulling tension back into the neck. When you're ready here, we're going to reverse that circle going back the opposite direction, trying to keep those hands high so we start to feel a little bit of a burn in those shoulders. There's a lot of variations you can add here to warm up the shoulders. We can press forward through the palms to start to warm up some of those muscles in our chest. Think about your underarm pushing in to help warm up those muscles there. We can also push back, turning our palms towards the back of us and just gently pushing back, utilizing the muscles on top of our shoulder blades. When you're ready, relax those arms, maybe shake out any tension here in the neck and in the shoulders if we've invited any in. And we're going to move to some marching. Now we can do these marches seated or we can do them standing. I'll kind of join you in a chair if that's where you're at today. We're going to want to scoot towards the edge of that chair if we are sitting, bringing opposite arm and leg up, dropping them towards the ground, and then lifting the other side. So we're going to alternate here, working to keep our posture upright, not sinking back into that chair. And same thing if we're standing. We want to keep our chest high and open. Gently pull your belly button in and up, almost like you're zipping up a pair of pants, so that we can get a little bit of core engagement, and that'll help us to stay upright here. Maybe we start to involve a little bit of a twist as we move from side to side to engage our core muscles a little bit further. And when you're ready to relax, we will release. Moving into some general twists, we'll relax that lower body and focus a little bit more on our core and our thoracic spine, that middle portion of our spine that can sometimes be hard to get warm. So maybe you bring your hands up and in just so they're out of the way, and we're going to twist nice and easy from side to side. And it shouldn't feel like a very extreme motion. We're not trying to cause ourselves any pain or discomfort here, just to get the spine warm, to get it used to that movement, used to that rotation. Typically, a lot of injuries can come from a lack of rotation. So it's good to practice a little bit of it in every joint that we have. Alrighty, very last here, we'll get those glutes nice and warm. They are kind of the powerhouses of our lower body, and they also help to sustain our core. So we're gonna sit up nice and tall in the chair if we are sitting. We're gonna squeeze both sides of our glutes nice and tight, holding for 2 to 3 seconds, and then just release nice and easy. You may find that you grow a little bit, you're a little bit taller in your chair as you squeeze. Then as you release, you might sink down. If you're standing, you can absolutely do this same exercise, squeezing, holding for a few seconds, and then releasing. The thing I like about sitting as we do this exercise here is your body, your upper body specifically, is adding a little bit of weight. So it's like a natural resistance that we're adding to this exercise. You can also do this anywhere. It's like a secret. Nobody knows, right? You could be in line at the grocery store, practicing your glute squeezes, making sure we've turned on the right muscles. So really, a lot of these exercises you can do anywhere you are, which is kind of nice. So let's look at a few more specific strength exercises. The very first exercise we're going to do is a seated row. Now, if you had like a resistance band available to you, you could absolutely use that for some added resistance, but you can get a great burn in your muscles without it as well. So we're going to start with our hands straight out in front of us like we're driving a car. You're going to bring your shoulders low down away from your ears and start to pull your elbows back. You're going to keep them really tight to your body, squeezing them as far back behind as you can. And as you do this, you're going to notice your shoulder blades want to come in. We want to encourage them not only to pull in towards each other, but also to push down. Like the points of our shoulder blades are making a little V down our back. So reaching straight out in front of us, we pull the shoulders back. The elbows are nice and tight. We open the chest forward, like we're imagining we're Superman. Little easy push out. We pull, we squeeze those shoulder blades in and down, little hold. One more here, big reach out. We pull it back, squeeze nice and tight here, keeping that chest open. That's a great exercise to do to help improve your posture. If you feel like you're sitting a lot and your chest is starting to come forward, your head is starting to drop, try a couple rows and see if that doesn't help improve that posture. Next, we're going to look at a triceps extension. Now, your triceps are 3 muscles that live right here on the back of your arm, and they're really great at helping us to get up out of things, especially chairs. So we want to make sure that we take the time to strengthen them. So all we're going to do here is push our arm down and back as straight as we can possibly get it. So if you see here, I'm almost kicking that arm back as straight as I possibly can. Now, you can reach back as far as you like, however your shoulder feels comfortable. But all we're going to do is bend that elbow, and we're creating a little hinge with it as we bring it forward and back. When we come straight, we're squeezing the back of that arm as tight as we possibly can, and then allowing it to move back forward. If you wanted a little bit more resistance and you were in a chair with or without arms here, you could bring your hands to the side of the chair or to those arms, and you could try to push up, bringing your elbows as straight as you can to use your body as a little bit of added resistance. The nice thing about that is the chair is always there to catch you if you do feel a little bit unstable. Next, let's do some leg extensions. Again, scooting towards the edge of that seat, we're going to sit tall, zipping up that core, pulling that belly button up. We're going to kick our legs out here, one at a time, straightening as tight as we can, using our quadriceps here on the front of our thigh. Then we'll take it slowly back down to the floor and release. Now, if you want to add a little bit of extra here, hover that foot here at the bottom and try not to let it touch the ground. That's going to make it a little bit more challenging, and you're going to feel a bit more burning in your hip here. Now, with that extra challenge, we really want to make sure that we're not sinking back, that we're staying nice and tall. Our chest is staying open, especially since we just did our rows. We have great posture now. We'll do one more, kicking out nice and strong, squeeze that thigh, and then we'll release to the floor. Same thing on the other side. Reset that posture, sitting nice and tall. We'll kick it out here, squeezing tight. Little hold for as long as you feel comfortable. We'll bring it back down to the floor. Hover that foot if you want that little bit of extra challenge. And you know what challenges you. So you do what feels right. If anything hurts, if anything doesn't feel quite right here, feel free to adjust. You can always rest that foot for a moment. You can go as slow or as fast as you need to, just making sure we're focusing on squeezing the right muscles. One more here as we kick out, big squeeze, and then we'll release. Feel free to shake out those legs a little bit if they're feeling a bit tense. And let's move to our next exercise. We're gonna do some knee raises here, kind of like that marching that we just did for our warm-up. We're gonna add that core engagement back in. So lifting one knee, we're gonna take this opposite arm and try to meet elbow and knee here as we come across the body. We're gonna think about that diagonal line being drawn from our shoulder all the way down to our hip as we squeeze. So we really start to utilize those oblique muscles or our side ab muscles. They really help us to control and to stabilize things in our lateral plane, our side to side motion. So it's really important to keep these muscles strong. It helps to take a breath in as we open the chest and a breath out as we squeeze across. Same thing on the opposite side. Bringing elbow and knee towards each other. And it's okay if they don't touch. That's not the point, right? We want to make sure that we're using the right stuff. That is the point. So think about shoulder moving towards hip. That's where we find that squeeze. That's where we turn on the right muscles there. Breathing out. So we get that contraction of that core. And we want to be very specific with every movement that we do because no movement is wasted. All right. Next, let's look at some calf raises. If you'd prefer to stay seated, you could absolutely do this exercise sitting down. You could maybe place something in your lap on top of your thighs here to add a little bit of extra resistance. But the nice thing about standing is that your body is your resistance. So if you'd like to join me behind your chair for a little extra support, we'll come here to the back of it. And we're going to think about, as we move our body weight up onto our toes, that it's not just our body weight moving forward, moving into our toes, it's our heels lifting. That's the point of this exercise. So using support if we need it, a counter or a chair, we're going to lift the heels as high as we can lift them to engage those calves and then slowly lower them back down to the floor. Not focusing on pushing our weight forward, focusing on moving up. So good. Posture is very important here as well. As our shoulders start to curl and our head starts to come down, gravity likes to pull us straight down to the floor. So we want to make sure that we're looking high, we're aiming high, because we tend to go where we're looking. Good. Let's do one more here, bringing those heels up nice and high and slowly lowering back down. Very nice. All right, let's check out some leg raises. These really help to work our glute muscles, which, like we said earlier, are like the powerhouses of our lower body. They help us to get up out of chairs, how to get up out of bed, get out of our car during the day. They also help to hold our pelvis in the correct position so that our core remains strong. We're going to start with a side leg raise. Coming to the side of your chair, if you're using it here for support, we're going to stand tall, engage that core, zipping it up, and then gently lift one leg out to the side. You can move as slow or as quick as you need to, but our goal here is to work our glute medius. It's this muscle that sits here on the outside of our hip. It helps us to walk. So we really want to make sure that this muscle stays very strong. Now you'll notice as I'm lifting my leg, I'm not bending over. I'm not becoming a teeter-totter. We want to feel that little pinch in the outside of the hip, and we don't feel it as well when we don't stay tall. Beautiful work here. One more. And then we'll do the same thing on the other side, maybe moving to the opposite side of that chair if we have some space, zipping up that core, standing nice and tall, and we lift. Now you may notice as well as you're lifting that maybe you're feeling a little bit more burn in that standing leg, that standing hip, as opposed to the leg that's actually lifting. That's because it's almost impossible to isolate one side of your hips. They work as a team. They work in tandem. So when one is working, the other side is working as a counterbalance. So my standing leg is actually working here so that I don't fall over as I lift that opposite leg. So it's okay if you're feeling that burn in a little bit of a different place. Nice lift here. One more. And we'll release. Feel free to kind of shake those legs out if they're tight, if they're tense. And let's move into some rear leg raises. So I'm rotating my chair here so you all can see what I'm doing. We're going to come to the back of it, using your chair, using your counter for support as you need, and we're going to lift to the rear this time. So using our glute max, this is the biggest powerhouse of our lower body. We're going to lift our legs straight back, squeezing through that glute. And it's important here to try to imagine that your lift, your movement starts with your squeeze, and that's how high your leg goes. We don't just want to throw that leg back and hope that maybe that glute is working and helping to support us. We want to start with the squeeze and let that lift follow. It comes from that muscle. If we want to challenge ourselves here with balance as well, we can try to come to fingertips on whatever surface we're using for support instead of death gripping that object. And that'll kind of help us to work on that balance simultaneously. We also want to think about not rotating our hips and opening as we kick back, keeping them squared to the front. Let's check out that other side. Standing leg pushes nice and strong through the floor. We reset that posture and open the chest. We're kicking straight back. And we're thinking about that squeeze in the glute. That's where it's coming from. These are arguably some of the most important muscles in your body. So we really want to take that time and make sure that we work them correctly. Just a few more here as we stay tall. Keep those shoulders back and down. We'll do one more big squeeze, maybe a little hold to challenge ourselves, and we'll bring it back down. Our very last exercise, we'll be going from seated to standing. So if you generally do feel unstable moving from a seated position to a standing position, take your time. Maybe make sure you have a little bit of extra support next to you, whether it's a wall, a walker, or a counter that you can use just in case you do lose your balance. But that chair is behind you to be a support as well. Feet are going to come hip width apart on the floor. We're going to scoot towards the edge of that chair. And here, we're going to use our glutes to help us stand. How we do that is by pushing through our feet very specifically. Your whole foot will stay connected with the floor, all four corners, but we want to actually focus most on pushing through our heels. That's going to place most of the pressure here on the back of your leg and take that pressure off the front of your knees. So if you're a person who has a lot of knee pain, this is a great exercise to practice. We're going to take that weight forward, drive through the heels to stand. Yes. And if we keep that entire foot connected with the floor, we won't fall. Big push. We stand nice and strong, nice and tall. We take our time on the way down if we want to add a little bit of a challenge. Again, pushing through that heel to help us control that motion. We really want to use those glutes to help us. They can be very, very strong, very helpful muscles. So we want to put them to work here. Let's do two more here. Taking that time, take all the time you need, using hands if you need to help. But we do want to focus on that pressure through the feet, even if we are using our hands. It's important to note that we can always, always, always modify a motion. Let's come to rest here. So it's okay to start maybe using a little bit more support as you become a little bit more advanced in some of these motions. Start to change what you're doing. Maybe take away some of those things that have made the movement a little bit easier for you and start to find what challenges you more. All right, let's have a look at some more coordination exercises. So these are things that typically work in some kind of a flow. Maybe it's two motions that are happening at once. Maybe we're using several different parts of our body as opposed to isolating one muscle group. So we're going to start with some diagonal presses or reaches. So we're reaching across the body here. It's going to involve some shoulders working. It's going to involve a little bit of twisting through our core. And it also has the possibility to throw us a little bit off balance. So keep both of your hips, both of your sits bones here connected with the chair that you're sitting in. And just try to get that nice stretch through your side as you reach. Now, if we prefer to reach across the body, we can add that little variation here as well. And again, you can move as fast or as slow as you need to. It's all about what challenges you and where you feel safe. And we can also reach down here, reaching down towards our opposite side. Maybe we even lean a little bit, almost simulating that we've dropped something on the ground and we want to try to pick it up. So those are things that can absolutely happen in real life, and we do want to be prepared for those situations when they happen. All right, go ahead and rest there, relaxing those arms. We've already done some marching in place. That's a really great coordination exercise. You can do that seated or standing. I like doing it standing because it really does help to challenge your balance. So if that's something you struggle with, that's a great thing to try to work on. Let's look at a few other standing coordination exercises. So again, using this chair as a support if we need it, it's right here to help. We're going to practice a little dance step. It's called a box step. All we're going to do is create a box with our feet. So if you need to use the back of this chair, right, we can come behind it. And we're just gonna make a little box with our feet. Stepping forward with one foot, stepping to the side, stepping back, and then coming back to our original position. Of course, if we needed a little support here, we could use that chair to come forward, to the side, back, and to the side. We wanna make sure that we're going in both directions. Maybe we start with our right foot leading in the beginning, and then as we switch to the other side, maybe we come to our left foot leading. So we're working both sides equally. Imagine that little box on the floor. So good. Maybe grab a partner if it feels right. Alrighty, let's check out these standing foot circles. So this is definitely a coordination exercise. We're gonna combine a few things we've already done, a little bit of rotation and that kickback that we just did. So if we're using our chair here for support, we're gonna come to the back of it. We're gonna lift one leg using our glutes, right? We know how to squeeze here to lift. And we're just gonna take that foot in a little bit of a circle. You can go whichever direction you like to start. And when you're ready to go to the other side, we'll just reverse. Your goal is again to stay tall and maybe try to come to fingertips on this chair. And if that's too tough to lift, we can keep these toes on the ground and maybe we just find a little rotation with our heel or with our ankle. And we start here. So that just in case we do feel like we're losing our support, we're losing our balance, we can put that foot directly down on the floor and we can catch ourselves here. We want to always, always, always do both sides, maybe lifting on the other, finding that little bit of a circle. Maybe we try it out to the side and we want to circle there. It's all about trying to challenge that balance and find that coordination. So play around a little bit, find what challenges you. This very last step we'll look at is just a regular side step. So we're just going to come side to side. Typically, we get really, really used to moving in the forward plane. We move forward and we move back. But we tend to neglect this lateral plane, these side to side motions. So that's where sometimes we find a lot of issues in our balance when we're not used to moving from side to side. So this is a great thing to practice. Maybe if you're standing in your kitchen, doing some dishes, and you want to find a little movement, put something nice on, put some nice music on, find a little beat, and get a little movement from side to side. Next, we'll look at a few standing balance exercises. So these are a few more specific foot positions that are going to look specifically at balance, at the balance portion of things. So let's talk about a few different foot positions we can work on to try to increase our balance. Our first one is just going to be our 2 feet together. And maybe we're standing next to our chair, or our counter, or maybe we're standing behind it where we can place our hands very strongly on it if this is a tough position. But I want you to focus on feeling the floor. That's the most important part of this. So we've talked about proprioception before in past videos. That is our awareness of our body in space. Now, if we have a loss of proprioception, it can be really hard sometimes to feel where our foot is on the floor. So we do want to work on that and practice that and try to use those nerves to the best of their ability. So spread those toes out really wide. Try to press down into the ground and feel that foot connecting with it. And if this is tough for you, that's okay. Stay in this position, work on it until it starts to get a little bit better. We can also add different arm movements, side to side, forward and back, or we can add head movements here to make it a little bit more challenging. Let's move on to our next foot position. We're gonna fit our feet together like a puzzle piece. So the toes of one foot are gonna fit into the arch of the other, just like this. So we're just a little bit offset. Same thing here, spreading the toes, pressing down with all 4 corners of that foot, our pinky toe, our big toe, and both sides of our heel. And we're imagining that we're centering our weight between both feet. Do your best to keep your chest tall and look ahead. Maybe find something to look at. If we feel we're feeling competent here on this side, let's try the opposite one, switching it up, putting the other toes into the opposite arch. See if that changes anything for you. It might not here if this has not been too challenging yet, but we do typically tend to have one side that's a little bit easier to balance on than the other. And again, we can always add movements with the arms to challenge ourselves here. Beautiful. All right, this next position we're going to look at, we're going to keep our feet about hip width apart. This is going to give us a wider base of support, but we are going to challenge that base of support by bringing 1 foot forward and 1 foot back. So our feet are still in line with our hips, but now we've again offset that weight. We're going to spread those toes. You know the drill, press down into the ground and try to center our weight between both feet. We tend to want to go into that back foot, which is okay, but make sure we're using our front foot as well, pressing strongly into the floor. All your power is always going to come from the ground, so we want to use it. When you're ready, we'll switch it up here, keeping those feet in line with our hips, just moving 1 forward and 1 back. Both sets of toes stay pointed forward, and we balance our weight between both feet. Chest is high, shoulders come back and down. Take a moment here to find your bearings, maybe find that spot on the wall to stare at. And then if you need that variation, add your arm movements, add your head movements, challenge yourself as you need. Our very last foot position we'll check out here is a tandem stand. Now this is going to be the hardest one. Doesn't mean you shouldn't try it. We're going to bring our feet in a straight line, all right? Almost like that test that police officers sometimes do when they pull someone over. So we're going to come heel to toe. And again, come back to our hallmarks of spreading the toes, pressing the feet down, and balancing the weight between both sides. If we come too far back or too far forward, our heels or our toes have a propensity to kind of lift up, and there's where we lose our base of support. So we want to really center ourselves between both feet. Doing great, using whatever support we need here. Maybe coming to fingertips to challenge ourselves instead of gripping super hard. And as this gets easier, add whatever you need to challenge yourself. Maybe flap your wings a little bit. And we'll switch it up. Same thing on the other side here. Coming heel to toe. Again, it's normal for one side to be a little bit easier than the other. So feel it out. Notice what this side needs as opposed to the other. Find that connection with the floor and stand tall. Take your time. Add any other challenging pieces that you might need here. But just know that the more you practice these motions, the better they get. The first time we do something, we are never the best at it generally. So we need to work to hone these skills. So staying consistent is going to be the best thing that you could do with these exercises to improve upon them. All right. So we talked about shifting our focus point, right? We can also try to shift our weight between our feet as we're working through some of these positions. Maybe we try to move through our hips a little bit, finding a circular motion or a side-to-side motion. Those are other ways that you can progress these movements. Moving your hands, adding any kind of upper body motion. Perhaps you get quite a bit more advanced in some of these positions and you want to add maybe some bicep curls or some tricep extensions with some weights. The world is quite literally your oyster. There are so many variations that you could add. So get a little bit creative with some things that you might like to do. You can also try to practice these on an unstable surface. Maybe you have a foam pad, a really soft blanket, or a towel that you could fold a couple times to stand on top of, and maybe practice finding your footing, practice trying to feel the floor through that unstable surface and getting your bearings. So a few helpful tips here. Sometimes proprioception is the issue with our balance. So that again is our body's idea of where we are in space. If I were to hold my foot out in front of me or hold my hand out in front of me and close my eyes, I would know where that limb is in space without having to look at it. So if that is our issue, if our brain is failing to create that picture and it's not quite correct, try doing these exercises in front of a mirror to maybe help with that balance. It'll start to associate that body position with where it actually is in space and maybe start to get those nerves to work a little bit more adequately. Give your brain an actual physical picture to look at while you're imagining and thinking about what your body is doing in space, and those wires may start to connect a little bit more adequately again. You can always also add and take away resistance, like using weights or a TheraBand, or you can change an exercise from seated to standing to make it a little bit more difficult. You could always, always, always modify a motion, and it's just the most important to find which type of exercise or which modification of it challenges you in the best way. So try out a few things. Don't be afraid to get creative. Don't be afraid to ask questions from an exercise professional or your doctor to find what does work right for you. You can also change the conditions or the environment that you're in, maybe putting on sunglasses or dimming the lights to make things a little bit more difficult if you find that you want that kind of a challenge. Talk to your doctor always if you believe that you are a fall risk or if you have fallen. They can always provide guidance on what may or may not be a safe activity for you or refer you to a professional who can. If you feel that anything has changed with your balance, it's always a great idea to check in with your doctor so they can run any follow-up tests that they feel might be necessary. It's also okay to ask for help if you need it. If you're trying something for the first time, maybe have somebody nearby to help in case you do have a moment where you're off balance. If you utilize an assistive device, maybe try that exercise with your walker or with your cane first until you become a little bit more comfortable. It's okay to rely on those things if you do need them. They are there to help, and you can always work to move away from them as you feel more comfortable. But make sure that you are supported when you do begin exercise. So at the end of the day, balance is something that you create. It is not something that you just go out and find somewhere. You know your body, you know where your weaknesses are, and we always get better at things the more we do them. So practice these exercises, practice working on your balance, work to see those improvements. If you believe you can do it, then you will. So good luck. Stay balanced. Thank you for joining us today for this presentation.